Production funding for Behind the Headlines is made possible in part by the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Possible changes to term limits, instant runoff voting, and more tonight on Behind the Headlines. I'm Eric Barnes, President and Executive Editor of the Daily Memphian. Thanks for joining us. I am joined tonight by Steve Mulroy, former County Commissioner and Professor of Law at the U of M. Thanks for being here again.
Thank you.
And Martavius Jones from the Memphis City Council. Thank you for being here again.
Thanks for having me.
Along with Bill Dries, reporter with the Daily Memphian. So we're going to talk through the charter amendments. Is that the right term, Bill? The referendum that are coming up
in a couple of amendments
weeks.
To the Memphis City Charter.
Yes, that are coming up in about 3-4 days before early voting starts. We'll walk through each one. I'm going to ask Bill, you two are on different sides of the issue, different perspectives on the issue. We'll kind of walk through all of them, but I'm going to start with you, Bill, and the first, which is term limits, which probably catches people's eye more so than maybe the other issues. I'm not sure which one's most important, but we'll start with term limits. What's on the ballot, and how does that differ from how things are handled right now?
All right. Currently, you have a limit of 2 consecutive terms that anyone on the elected to the city council or serving on the city council can serve, as well as the mayor. They're limited to 2 consecutive terms. This charter amendment would change that. It would say the term limits are now 3 consecutive terms for those elected to the city council and those elected as mayor. It would also take effect immediately, which means that the city council members and the mayor who are now term limited or up against the term limits, which would be 3 city council members who have not been elected to county office, they would be able to run again in 2019 for a 3rd term.
Okay. And we'll go to you, Steve. Where are you on this term limit issue?
Oh, I'm opposed to this amendment. Memphis voters in 2008 debated all of these issues and overwhelmingly approved 2 election reforms. Term limits was one of them. Instant runoff, which we'll get to in a moment, was another. And in all of these instances, the city council is trying to undo the will of the voters before either election reform has had a chance to take effect. This is clearly incumbency protection. This is all a part of a package designed to make it easier for city council incumbents to stay in power longer. And part of this is evidenced by the fact that this ballot referendum that we're talking about right now is misleadingly worded. It makes it sound like if you're for term limits, then you ought to vote yes. It says, do you want 3 term limits? But it doesn't tell you that we currently have 2 term limits. So you actually, if you are for term limits, you ought to vote no. I think most Memphis voters are for term limits. They want to stick with the 2 terms that we have. If they understand what's going on, despite the misleading ballot language, then I think they would be likely to vote no, which is what I think they ought to do.
Martavius, you are current city council. You are in your 2nd term?
First
term.
Yes.
Okay, so this doesn't directly impact you immediately, but would eventually. So we fully disclose that. Where are you on this issue?
I'm for it, and the reason that I am, if you look at a full-time job, that's typically 2,000 hours per year. If you take our responsibilities as a city council person, we meet twice a month, 12 months out of the year. That's 24 meetings, 8 times 8 hours. That's 192 minutes. I mean, that's 192 hours versus a full-time job, less than 10% that you are supposed to be proficient in your job. To me, it's mathematically impossible to do so. This measure is not eliminating term limits. It's just saying, okay, well, if you were just doing your job, the job that you do right now, just 10% out of the year, 10% of the time out of the year, could you possibly be proficient in 4 years, 8 years, whatever the case may be? From a budgeting standpoint, I think I have everything, I'm on top of things when it relates to budget, finances, those issues.
The city budget, city
budget, yes. I'm on top of it there. But this planning and zoning and public works and fire with the responsibilities of a full-time job, I still have not, in 2.5 years, well, almost 3 years, still have not gotten a handle on that. So I think that just from a learning curve standpoint, in order for elected officials to do their job to the best of their abilities, think 2 years is not enough.
A little perspective as I go over to Bill for questions. The terms are 4 years for the city council. Is that
Yes.
correct? The mayor, also city mayor, is 4 years.
Yes.
Prior to the vote in 2008 that put these term limits in place, was it a limited time? Were there no term limits?
There were no term limits.
For the mayor or the city council?
None.
So back to, people remember Mayor Harrington was in for what, 3-4 terms, something like that?
Actually elected to
yeah.
5.
Elected to 5. County right now has term limits?
Yes, 2 consecutive terms for the county commission and for the county mayor, and for 5 of the charter offices, which are countywide offices, which are sheriff, trustee, register, assessor,
County clerk.
and county clerk.
And then again, so we get the full perspective here of local and state. The governor is limited to 2 terms, but state reps and state senators are not, I don't believe.
They are
have
not.
Any. Okay. Questions?
So, Steve Mulroy, you've been a county commissioner.
Yes.
You have served under term limits. What about this thing that Martavius has said, that 2 terms, you're not that familiar with it, that the body could serve better with more experience by allowing council members to serve 3 terms?
A couple of points. First of all, my own experience is I was able to master what needed to be done in the time. You don't just spend the hours in committee and on the floor. There's also other time in the, on the side where you're supposed to be doing your preparation. So I don't think it's unmanageable. Second thing is, if we do say that that's the case, then are we saying that votes that are cast by members in their first or second term aren't quite valid, that they're not really up to the task, that they're making important decisions about city policy without actually being qualified? I don't think anyone would really say that. And the third and final thing is, I don't say that there's no validity to the idea that Councilman Jones says that there is a learning curve. But I think at the end of the day, the voters considered that argument and rejected it. And they said clearly in 2008 that they wanted 2 terms. I think we ought to respect that. And we ought to not try to undo the will of the voters by a misleadingly worded ballot referendum.
Martavius, do you hear sentiment that people are saying, yeah, we approve 2 terms, but let's go for 3 terms?
Well, what we haven't heard, or what wasn't the issue, the voters could have said, going from having no term limits, had 3 been presented, well, they could have approved 3. Had 4 been presented, they could have approved 4. So it's one of those things where there was only just the alternative, term limits, 2 terms. So there was no opportunity for the people to say, well, 3 would have been sufficient, 4 would have been sufficient, or we don't want any more than 5.
But there was some precedent for that on the county side, because the county, as we noted, has a limit of 2 consecutive terms, and there was a charter amendment in 2008, packaged with other county charter amendments, that said, no, let's increase it to 3 terms, 3 consecutive terms, and apply it to these other 5 countywide offices. And county voters rejected that entire package, all of the amendments, and it voted it down. The county commission came back and presented all of the other charter amendments as they had been in that package and took it to 2 term limits, and it was approved. So is some of this in how it's presented as opposed to what voters may be thinking about it? Or do voters think about things like term limits before they're brought up like this?
Well, I think that remains to be seen. I think that anytime that you have, one example that I'll give you, when this was first discussed at the city council level, Bill Morrison, who will be, I don't know if you are aware, but he turned in his resignation effective November 1st. But the whole Raleigh Springs Mall project, he said it has taken him entirely the 8 years on his term to do so, and he barely got within, I guess, that window to do so. So if you have rapid turnover as you do with a 2-term limit that's currently in place, you can have some projects that may not necessarily go to its full fruition or expectation from those along those lines.
2 things. How do these get put on the ballot?
The council has to, let's just say 7 votes.
7 votes,
7 votes of the city
7
council
votes, yes.
to put
Right.
virtually anything to go on
yes.
there. Does that make you uncomfortable, that you're voting to extend your term?
No, it doesn't, because the ultimate decision will be made by the voters. It's not a unilateral decision just that's made by the Memphis City Council.
But it is an oddity, right? I mean, I mean, I'm not accusing you of anyone of malfeasance. I'm just saying it's a strange thing to vote on your own extension, possible extension.
But the ultimate decision is made by the voters.
It is, and it is. But to word it and to affect your, I mean, it's like when you guys vote on your own pay. I mean, there's a real, I mean, I'm not sure who else should vote on your pay, but it creates some appearances that are odd.
It makes me uncomfortable for this reason. There was no public outcry to change from 2 terms to 3 terms. There was no public outcry to repeal instant runoff voting. Both of them.
One of the other issues, just to say, one of the other issues
which
that we'll get to here.
We'll get to in a moment.
Yeah.
All of them have a potential conflict of interest in that they're all ways of making it easier for city council incumbents to stay in power longer. In fact, with respect to the instant runoff voting matter, there was a huge public outcry against doing this. 100 people showed up at the city council meeting begging them not to do this, and they did it anyway. And then when you couple that with the idea that the ballot referendum is misleadingly worded to try to push people towards a yes, it makes me very uncomfortable about what's going on. It seems to be disrespecting the will of the voters.
Where did you all get the wording for these ballot questions?
Well, I would say they either came from the city council attorney, Mr. Wade, or it very well could have been the individual sponsors who came up with the wording of it. It could have been council staff.
Do you think it's confusing?
No, I don't think that it's confusing at all.
Let me ask you, you talked about that, the learning curve, and you get in and you've got to begin to master issues, Bill Morris and others, and other issues in city councils. We have members, county commissioners we've had on this show who are pursuing very complicated issues of reform or a project or something like that. Is a different answer to that and this is just a thought, does the council need to meet more often? Does it need to go from what is, explicitly a part-time job now in terms of the compensation, in terms of how often you meet? Is that a different way to get at that learning curve if the issues are so challenging? And I don't think Steve's saying they're not difficult issues, but has it moved to a time where this is no longer a part-time job?
Well, in many respects, it's not a part-time job anymore. And what the council has done and what the commission has done as well, each body has delegated some of the authority that used to rest with elected bodies to outside independent boards and commissions. So I think that there could be an expectation if there are more frequent meetings, then some of that delegation of authority would revert back to the council, would revert back to the commission or any other elected body along those. I still think that a lot of the authority that we have delegated should rest with the elected bodies, people that are directly accountable to the voters and taxpayers.
An example of boards and commissions that things are being delegated to is what?
Well, first one that comes to mind would be EDGE.
Okay. Right.
First one would be EDGE.
If we have time at the end, we'll talk a little bit about EDGE. You were nodding that you were county commission for 8
Correct.
years?
8 years.
I mean, is it beyond the time where it's a part-time job?
Oh, I definitely think it is getting to the point where it is more than a part-time job. It may already be there. And I certainly see some merit in converting it to a full-time job for all the reasons that Councilman Jones describes, but also for the other reason that it would level the playing field so that people who, are of less limited, more limited means might still be able to afford to devote the time necessary, right? So people that are very, very well off, or retired or have the kind of job where, they can earn a comfortable living and still devote a lot of their time to their, avocation of being a city councilman or county commissioner, they're advantaged in a way that I think working class people aren't. So it might help with that as well as the problem that Councilman Jones articulated.
Since I brought it up, what are council people paid right now?
$29,000.
$29,000 a year. Are there other benefits that go with that?
Well, there's health benefits.
Are you in the city plan? You're eligible for the city plan?
Yes.
Like any city employee?
Yes.
Okay.
There was pension reform, so the whole idea of councilperson serving 12 years, for instance, if it's extended to 3 terms, we won't get that 12 and out pension.
Okay.
There was a.
What do you know offhand what county commission is right
it's
now?
It's the
same amount.
Because our pay is tied to the county commission's pay.
Yes.
And that was another charter amendment that voters approved.
Right. Right. Well, let's move. You mentioned, Steve, you mentioned the instant runoff voting.
Yes.
Let me get Bill to describe that, and then again, the third issue, the third charter amendment or ordinance referendum here. I'm sorry, I'm screwing up my terminology. Overlaps to some degree with
Yes.
instant runoff voting. So, I want to get you to tee those up.
Okay, so instant runoff voting.
Instant runoff voting.
Also known as ranked choice of voting. You go to vote, and instead of picking one candidate on that ballot, you pick your first preference, you pick your second, third. In some systems, you can go beyond that, however many choices you want to make. And so when you have a race where the runoff requirement is triggered, meaning the winner has to get 50% of the votes cast plus one, instead of in that race it going to another runoff election, what happens is the initial vote count is done, then you go to, okay, nobody got a majority. So you take the candidate with the lowest vote total, and you look at that candidate's ballot and say, okay, who is his number 2 choice? Those votes go to that candidate who is still in the running. You do that until you have a candidate that has a majority count.
Without going back to the voters again.
Without going back to the voters again.
So again, it's almost a scoring system. I mean, this is just so people follow here. If the three of you are running and I rank you as Bill, Steve, and Martavius, no offense to Martavius there, but that's, and you don't get 50%.
No one gets 50%.
No one gets 50%. You go back to all the ballots and you add up those second and third place.
Excuse me, not all the ballots.
Not all of them.
Okay,
but I don't mean to interrupt.
Before we get into the
mechanics
pros and
of it-
cons, let's make sure we're all on the same page about how this works.
So if one candidate gets a majority, just as Bill said, like in any other election, they win. And just as Bill said, if no candidate gets a majority, then you take the weakest candidate, the candidate that has the fewest first place votes, and you eliminate them. And then you look at just those ballots, not all the ballots, but just the ballots for that eliminated candidate, which is, I think, what you were going to say.
Yes.
And then you take a look at those ballots, and then you say, all right, this voter, their second choice was here, this voter, their second choice was there, and you redistribute, and then you step back and you say, now does anybody have a majority? If so, they win. If not, you do it again.
With taking out the next
Weakest candidate. And then you take a look at only the ballots for that next weakest candidate.
And when you say weakest, you
fewest first place votes.
Yeah, the lowest performing, the
Correct.
lowest ranked, the lowest voted.
Correct.
Okay. Is that your understanding of how it works?
Yes.
Okay.
And so I saw your eyes glazing over. as
No,
you-
my eyes were not glazing over. No, I mean it's complicated stuff. It is complicated.
Exactly.
And I just want to make sure that we
Yes.
lay it out to people.
Look.
This is before we get to the president's. This was voted in. Was this also voted in 2008, Bill?
In 2008.
But
yes.
it has not been used.
It has not been used because Election Commission officials at the time said that the voting machines we still have, the touchscreen machines, were not able to handle ranked choice or instant runoff voting. Linda Phillips, when she became the county elections administrator in 2016, I believe, she looked at it and she said, no, there is a way to configure the machines so that you can do 3 of these across the same listing of the same candidates, 3 across. So you could have this under that scenario, and under terms of the charter amendment, she said that would then have to take place with the 2019 city elections.
Okay. Martavius, back to you. Just again, I want to make sure I lay out some of the history and so on. You are opposed to this.
I'm opposed to it. Before I was seated on the city council, I ran for the county commission and lost by 25 votes. I challenged, this was the Democratic primary, and I presented a challenge before the primary board. And in that, we had an election commission that admitted that they did not follow certain respects of state law in tabulating the votes. We have had issues with this election commission year after year after year after year after year, even before I got into politics, since I've been in political office. So I still say an untested system with an election commission, how do we think that this election commission can adequately and accurately account for this system when we can't get the regular system that we have now in place?
If you hypothetical, if they were able to guarantee you it was 100% accurate, would you be in favor?
I
of
would
the
say
system?
I'd say let's have a hitch-free election first. Perhaps this November could be a good test of it.
Right.
Let's do that first. But so going back to the instant runoff though, or the ranked choice voting. Politics, it's a popularity contest. Whoever gets the most votes wins. So to come with some other iteration that says, okay, perhaps the fourth or third most popular candidate wins, but it has to be some machinations of numbers, manipulations of numbers to arrive at that, is that what the people of Memphis really want? Is that what they voted for? I would say not.
And this is applying, again, so we just get this right, this would apply to the city council and to the mayor's office, or just city council?
This applies to the 7 single-member district city council seats, not the super district seats. So you have 7 of the 13 city council seats that this would apply to if no candidate in that race gets a majority of the votes.
And with that, we are officially in the wonkiest show we've ever done. We have crossed the line. It's important.
I'd like to address that.
Think about this. I'm against it, but it doesn't affect me.
Yeah, no, and that's a fair point. Fair point. Let me give Steve, because you have strong feelings about this and thoughts about it. So go ahead and respond.
So there's been a couple of different points made, so I'd like to address all the points that have been made.
Yeah.
First of all, it will.
We have 5 minutes here.
It will affect Councilman Jones, not in this next election, but the election after that. We're phasing in implementation. The clear language of the Charter Amendment does say that it applies to all city council districts eventually. Second of all, he mentioned eyes glazing over. If you were to ask Bill to explain to an average voter how there are 7 single-member districts with runoffs, and then there are overlapping super districts with 3 numbered posts, and they don't have runoffs, the average voter's eyes would glaze over. But Councilman Jones would not say that the voters were too confused to cast an intelligent vote when they voted for him, right? With respect to the Election Commission's ability to do this, if you are concerned about election integrity, then you ought to be for instant runoff voting for this reason. Right now, the chief problem with our election integrity is that we're trusting the computers because we don't have a voter-verified paper trail. The way that Linda Phillips plans to do this is to actually print off paper ballot images and do a manual count in a transparent, open process. The press will be invited, campaign observers will be invited, everyone will watch it, and it will not be trusting computers. And in terms of it being untested, that is precisely the way that it has been done in Minneapolis and St. Paul for numerous elections. Ranked choice voting elections, instant runoff voting elections have occurred over the last 20 years, over 200 different elections in 12 different cities, including the entire state of Maine. None of the election administration problems that have been discussed by Councilman Jones have occurred. And because of the paper ballot image advantage, if you're concerned about this election commission, all the more reason why you should be for instant runoff voting.
And technically, the voting would still take place on the machine, but there'd be a printout.
Correct.
Just so I'm clear.
And then everyone will be looking at the
machines
printout in a transparent process.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you have concerns, though, that doing the ranked choice voting, the instant runoff voting, could take the vote count into another day or two beyond that?
It might very well take it into account another day or two. First round results will be up election night. All those elections in which they got a majority will be up election night, but for those that require a runoff, it might take a couple of days. But that's certainly quicker than the 4 to 6 weeks that you currently have to wait to find out who won the election, because you've got to wait for an entirely separate, expensive, ridiculously low turnout, unnecessary runoff election in order to decide who won.
We've got just a couple minutes left. We've got a third item that overlaps a bit with this on the ballot. You want to go ahead and do that, and we'll get quick comments.
Yes, this is perhaps the simplest of the 3 provisions. It would eliminate the runoff provision for those 7 single-member district city council districts. It would say whoever gets the most votes in those races wins.
Okay, so what is the difference then between those two? So if I vote yes on one and no on the other, I mean, or I'm lost.
The other question is okay, what if instant runoff voting survives in this election?
The second question, yeah.
Yes, and then the provision here that abolishes runoffs.
Yeah. Just in the interest of time, I'm not advocating, I'm explaining, okay?
Yeah,
and then you
please.
can.
Thank you.
Professor Mueller. If you like instant runoff voting, then you ought to vote no on both of them, because either one of them by itself would kill instant runoff voting. They just kill it in different ways.
Is that your take, just objectively?
Yes.
Is that your take? Either one, a no vote on either one, let alone both, would kill instant runoff ranked choice voting?
Well, I still will say this. So the main argument that Mr. Moore, we've discussed this on a number of occasions, his main a concern has been the drop-off between the election turnout in a general election and the runoff. If the big issue is that drop-off, eliminate the runoff, and you don't have that drop off.
And then what do you do? You just take the person who gets the most votes.
Whoever gets the most votes.
Isn't that the way the mayor's done that?
Yes.
So we're just talking about city council. So Jim Strickland did not win the majority, 51% of the vote.
So with
he got the most of
right. So with ranked choice voting, it could be an outcome where the fourth vote getter.
That's never happened.
Hypothetically, it
never
could,
happened.
It could happen.
200 elections in the United States.
It could.
It's never happened once in 20 years.
You could have a scenario right now to where the mayor, Jim Strickland, didn't get the majority of the votes, or the second or third person could.
Why isn't that then an option here to go to the highest ranked voter wins?
That is the third one.
That is the third one.
That is the third one. And I absolutely need to respond to that.
For single member districts.
For single member.
Yes.
Okay, so quickly, on that third one, the problem there is the vote splitting problem, okay? So for example, you have too many Republicans running in a Republican majority district. A Democratic candidate sneaks in with 35% of the vote and is the least preferred candidate of the majority. That's how Donald Trump went from being a novelty candidate to the nominee in 2016, because the anti-Trump vote was split. And it also happened right here in Memphis in August, when Ford Canale, the incumbent, won with much less than 50% of the vote, because the progressive alternative vote was split among 3 candidates.
I think people are satisfied with Steve Cohen, because that's the same thing that
he would have won under instant runoff voting.
All right. Early voting starts a couple days from when this show airs. Whatever you do, vote. Whatever you vote for. Thank you both for being here. Thank you, Bill. Thank you for joining us. Join us again next week.